Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. Oh, got some feedback here. Let's try. Nope, that's not the one I want. Let's try that. Better. All right, let's try that again. Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney, 27 years. We started our little channel a couple years ago when that guy, Chris Watts, was in the news because I was really frustrated by how the news was handling the case, and they were explaining it, for lack of a better term, completely wrong. So we started our channel, and we were fortunate enough to get a couple of views, and here we are now 4 years later, and we do our Tuesday night live show every Tuesday, Mountain Time, 6 p.m., and then we do our show for our Patreon members as well, immediately following this show. But today we're going to do something that we usually say for our Patreon members, but there's still a lot of the stuff we do for our Patreon members, but you have to join to see what it is. And there's a lot less people there. So if you want to, chime in, so to speak, it's a lot easier. Anyway, tonight you can obviously leave us a chat. We don't beg for super chats, but I can tell you, if you do leave a super chat, it does get highlighted here on my screen and a lot easier and much more likely that I would take a look at it. For example, Maria Stark just did a super sticker. Appreciate that. See, we called out there Maria Stark. So that's where things are. Now you'd be saying, what are we going to talk about, Scott? There's just nothing going on in the news right now. Not true, not true, not true. We still have the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell matter. The court's order from last week said we're going to do one trial, and I'm going to waive speedy trial. And I feel so confident that it's not that big of a deal extending somebody's speedy trial date beyond 4 months. And, if the judge is wrong, the case will get dismissed at the appellate level for violation of speedy trial rights. I just don't know why. I don't know why the prosecution would risk that, but they feel confident and they got the judge convinced as well. But I'm telling you, justice is expensive. Don't try to do it on the cheap, and don't try to do it just because you think it's a little more convenient for the government. And now it's instead of one trial that's going to last 6 weeks, we'll just do one, even though it's outside of the speedy trial, which by law means if you set it outside of speedy trial, and there's some exceptions, I'm not going to deny that, but that you can only do it for a brief period of time, usually not 3 to 4 months like the court is allowing in this particular case. So, hey, he's the judge, Judge Boyce. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. As the defense, if I was the defense attorney on it, I'd be saying, okay, judge, you made the call. I'm still objecting. You're starting trial beyond speedy trial. And my client, even according to your own order, unequivocally refused to waive speedy trial. So we're unequivocally waiving speedy trial again. And therefore, we are going to make that an appellate issue upon conviction, because that's normally what's, that is more than likely what will happen. But there were also some hearings late last week that were sealed. Although, when you dig into it, you can sometimes try to obtain information. And in the Lori Vallow matter, the court's order to seal, it said the court hereby orders the following documents to be sealed until further order of the court. The reply of the state's objection and brief in response to defendants' 2 motions on Miss Rachel Smith. And then the court wrote in their own handwriting, for the reasons set forth in defendant's motion to seal, filed as of today's date, Stephen W. Boyce, his initials there. So I guess the question, as you may recall, Rachel Smith, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, my true crime talk fact checkers here, that's one of the prosecutors, the one that they brought in from Missouri because she had death penalty experience. So, early on, there were some objections to her being admitted, what they call pro hoc vice, since she's not actually licensed in Idaho to, practice law, but she can be admitted under the supervision of the attorney, and all the rules apply, etc. So, interesting little fact that came out about that. Apparently, somebody is still trying to, and that was in Chad Daybell's case, still trying to get the district attorney disqualified. So interesting to see. And like I said, on May 26th, the court came down with their order stating that, yeah, sure, what's a little speedy trial amongst us, amongst friends? What's 3 months? Not sure why the judge would want to do that. But hey, you know what? That's why they're the judge. They'll get paid the big bucks. And obviously, although not a criminal case, but at times, clearly there were allegations that could have gone criminal if somebody had gone to the authorities, regardless of what country the allegations took place in. No verdict today in regard to Depp v. Heard, although not surprising at all. As you may recall, they being the jury, 7 jurors, received the case Friday afternoon last week, about 3 p.m., I believe, Eastern time, which, is not a whole lot of time to deliberate after a case that's just gone 5-6 weeks. And so the court sent them home over the weekend, right? Not going to let them deliberate over the weekend. They're not supposed to talk to their families. They're not supposed to talk to anyone about the case until those 7 jurors get together. Well, they got together. They had 1 full day of deliberations. I think they started at 9 something and went till 5 today. No verdict, although they did ask 1 clarifying question so far, and the jury wanted some guidance as to one of the statements. But as you recall, Johnny Depp is suing as it relates to three statements that he says or alleges are completely false. The jury wanted to know if they should look at the headline. It says the jury's question to the court. Does question 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline, or does it pertain to the content of the statement and everything written in the op-ed? The judge wrote that the jury has to look at the headline in isolation as its own statement and to decide it by itself is defamatory without considering the full context of the op-ed. That's about it. And they're about 10 hours in as it relates to that point right there. So what does that mean when the jury's asking questions? Well, does it mean they're getting close? I don't know. Maybe they're just going through them for the first time. Somebody wants clarification. Maybe somebody didn't really look at it that way. And then all of a sudden, yep, there it is. There's the, they ask the court for clarification. As an attorney, I can assure you, I used to get really excited when juror questions came out. And what I found is you can't read a whole lot into it. That's just my personal experience. It could mean that they have, 1 quick question. They got to try to get it clarified. Maybe there's that 1 holdout that wants their question answered. You just don't know. Like I said, it's one of those things you just do not know how that's going to go at all. So try not to read too much into it. I've always said, particularly as an attorney, the second worst part of any trial is the jury deliberations, because you are basically useless. The court usually requires you to stay within 5 to 10 minutes of the courthouse so that if there is in fact a question, the attorneys come back. And for those of you who aren't familiar, how that happens is if the jury has a question, they write it out on a piece of paper, they buzz the bailiff, who then goes and picks up the piece of paper, and they say, "Hey, Mr. Bailiff, Miss Bailiff, the jury has a question." The court clerk is then notified, summons all the attorneys to get to the courtroom. The judge usually comes out and says, "We have a question." Usually give a copy to each side. They took a look at it. The court will then say, "This is my proposed answer. Do you all agree?" And, you try to maneuver around. Sometimes, I don't know. Yeah, judge, the answer should be, you've received all the instructions. Just go look at it. Other judges are very we should give them as much information as they can and clarify as much as they can. But you find out judges get in trouble for that at a certain point. So you need to, they need to be very careful of that. Ultimately, the court decides what answer is going back. The record is made. It's all done on the record outside the presence of the jury. And then the bailiff is sent back in with the answer to the question. That's it. All right. So we can obviously talk about Depp v. Heard. We got the Michael Sussman, the lawyer for the Clinton campaign, who was found not guilty. It's one of those cases where, the guy says he goes to the FBI just as a good Samaritan, saying, hey, I got this information, not really sure what to make of it, but it looks like there's something suspicious with this other campaign going on. And I, as a good Samaritan citizen, would just like to bring it to the attention of the general counsel of the FBI. And here it is. Okay. And he says that he's just there as his own, just good Samaritan. Then come to find out through the process of discovery that he billed the client not only for the thumb drive, but his time there to the Clinton campaign. The defense is basically, it's not a lie. And even if it wasn't a material lie. Now, a lot of people called it and said, there's no way this guy's going to get convicted in DC. I happen to think this is you, me, chances are we're going to be found guilty by a jury saying, how dare you lie to the FBI? But maybe times are changing. I don't know. But needless to say, Mr. Sussman was found not guilty. So the special counsel doesn't look like he's going to have a whole lot of more success down the road. Although the interesting thing that came out of that case, for whatever it is important, but that Mook guy testified under oath that, we kind of knew it was questionable. Frankly, we basically knew it was false, that whole report. And, our boss, the head of that campaign, Hillary Clinton, she's the one that gave us the thumbs up. So that was a little enlightening. I think it's kind of interesting because apparently it came out that they knew it was false, but then the narrative. And I'm not trying to get into political stuff. I'm just saying from the legal side of it, I think that's rather interesting. All right. So when we come back, we will take calls. We got to do a hard break. I'm getting in all kinds of trouble because I have been not taking hard breaks. So let's take a hard break right now, and we'll be right back. And then we'll take calls and we'll start answering chats. Thanks for watching. This is Crime Talk. We'll see you in just a few seconds. Yep. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to crimetalksearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us through that hard break. A couple of questions that just jump out here. This is always kind of funny. Leslie wants to know, a great portion of the Crime Talk dumb criminals of the day seem to come from Florida. Why is that? Love your show. I always learn so much. Well, thank you very much, Leslie. I, too, have noticed that a large portion of our dumb criminals come from Florida. I'm not exactly sure why. However, I think it has something to do with the fact that there are very open records, so to speak, in Florida that a lot of states don't have. And and it's just easier to find the dumb criminals in the state of Florida because they're so prevalent, I think. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know. They have the best. I mean, we sort through several dumb criminals, but it always seems to be the ones from Florida that make the cut. Maybe there's something in the water. I don't know exactly, but yeah. But thanks for the question, Leslie. All right. Now, if you would like to call in as well, let's give you the number 725-228-TALK, 725-228-8255. Feel free to call in. Only one rule. You can't talk to your computer. You got to talk to the phone. Turn your computer down because there's a bit of a delay. So yeah, make sure you do that. All right. Let's see. Oh, we have a call already. Who do we have? All right. No name. All right. Are you there? Who's calling?
Yeah.
Who do we have?
Hi, Diana.
Diana, where are you calling from?
Can you hear me?
I can.
I'm calling from LA, California.
LA, California. How are things in LA?
Very nice, breezy, warm, nice. So I have a question. May I?
Sure. Go ahead.
So I know judges are trying to reason in a different way than society. So do you know why and how?
Say that last part again. That they're being light?
Yeah, like
Yes.
the judge is trained to reasoning in a different way than society or regular people.
Are you thinking, and is this in the context of sentencing or letting people out on bond?
No, in a context of understanding what's going on, like for above what it's seen, like in a different way. Do I explain myself or not?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you mean. I apologize. So your question is about a judge and they're like how they're trying to change society or something?
No. So let me explain or
Okay.
rephrase again.
All right.
So in England, like the Queens and all these dudes study in basic philosophy, and they are shown how to reason. They use reasoning very different from regular society.
Oh yeah.
And I know judges do similar kind of training. So I would like to know if you know how and why.
Sure. So the question is, how do judges, they're trained for their reasoning, right? How they come to the conclusions that they come to. Well, I mean, they're lawyers. They went to law school. Usually the judges have, some experience under their belt, but it's what they teach you in law school. And what they teach you in law school is that you're not supposed to get emotional about the case. Okay. You simply
Yeah.
look at the facts, you apply the facts to the law, and then you make a decision, regardless of what the outcome will be, favoring one party or the other. Now, we all know that doesn't happen in real life, but that's the way it's supposed to go if the judges truly follow, for lack of a better term, the training that they received in law school. Does that make sense?
Sort of. Yeah. I agree with that they don't usually follow those or that technique. It's a technique, right? Or not?
Yeah, I mean, they should follow that technique. I mean, judges are not supposed to be advocates for one side or the other. They're supposed to be they're the
Correct.
equivalent of an umpire at a baseball game, simply calling balls and strikes. That's it. And they shouldn't get involved in anything else, hoping one side wins, hoping one side loses, helping out the other side, helping out the attorneys on one side because maybe they're a little favored towards the prosecution or something along those lines. Yeah, so that's the way it's supposed to be. All right.
And can I do a second question or?
Sure. Go ahead. Make it quick. We got others.
So the second question is about the lawyers. So I see several lawyers are like a bit aggressive and impulsive, and all those are tools of abuse. So, and some people justify those tools because of the profession, and it shouldn't be like that. So is there something at school that they train them not to be abusive and impulsive and twisting the opposite, the opponent, or something like that?
No, I mean, I think generally, law schools and bar associations try to instill in attorneys that they need to be ethical, that they need to be, polite and courteous to all parties involved. I mean, that's just, frankly, just it's good business. It's a good way to, get more information out of an opposing attorney. However, I can tell you, there are some attorneys out there that are just jerks. Okay, there are some attorneys that just want to poke fingers in people's chests, poke fingers in people's eye, and be mean and intimidating because that's the way they think that works for their style. My experience is it never really works at all. And, um,
Correct.
you know, but that's other people's styles. I don't, and it depends. I mean, there's times where you start out very nice with a witness on a cross examination on the witness stand. And if they're fighting you and they're being evasive, then guess what? You're going to get a little more aggressive and say, no, you're going to answer my question. Yes or no, something along those lines. All right. Thanks, Diana from
Yeah,
LA.
but there's
I
ways
appreciate.
like, yeah, sure.
Yep.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Next up. All right. Who do we have?
Hi, I'm Becca.
Becca, where are you calling from?
Indiana.
Indiana. How are you?
Oh, not too awful, I guess. So my question is, maybe up your alley. I don't know. My father died in 1998 in a car accident in North Carolina, and I don't know where in North Carolina. I don't have access to his birth or his death certificate or anything like that because I don't have any. Well, I just don't know how to on any of that. But I want to know how to be able to get any of that information, if at all possible, because I haven't been able to find. And I know he wasn't driving the vehicle, and it was a head-on collision supposedly with a semi truck.
Okay. Well, normally, if you need to find,
yeah.
okay. Well, normally a death certificate is a public record. So if it occurred in North Carolina, there should be some sort of North Carolina office that handles death certificates. I don't know what the name of it would be. Probably Google that, give them a call, tell them, your father's name and date of birth, and you should be able to get a copy of it.
All right.
And from there,
I will give that a shot.
All right. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Let's take a look at some of the questions here on Angel White. Did the verdict come in? No, Angel. No verdict just yet. Bonnie says the closed family courts need opened up. I don't do family law, but yes, I think that they probably should be. I think, the courts are set up and supposed to be operated where anybody could go in and watch any proceeding whatsoever. There's some exceptions when it comes to, minors and things of that nature where there's some things, but for the most part, it should be open, fair game to everybody. Everyone come in and watch, look at it, go pull a court file if they want to. That's the way it should be. Sarah Claire wants to know, can Amber Heard be charged? Let's see. Can Amber Heard be charged for lying under oath in court and the other witnesses? I cannot recall a single case. I'm sure maybe somebody could remind me, but I can't think of a single case where somebody was prosecuted for a perjury charge in a civil matter. Just don't see it. The only thing I possibly think of is like a bankruptcy case where I think those get filed on a little more regular basis. But when it comes to that, no, I cannot think of a case. Very, very unlikely that would take place. And just because you don't like what somebody said, or you think their version, they must be not telling the truth, doesn't mean they're not telling the truth. It just means that maybe they have a different perspective on what they observed than other people in the same room. It's not uncommon, and that's why it's very difficult to prove. Let's see here. Let's see if there's some questions here. Okay, Deborah says, very true about Florida. We have some dumb and crazy criminals here. Our population is large and we have a lot of sleaze. Yeah, but I think there's also a lot of nice people in Florida. So let's be fair. I think it just gets brought to the attention a little easier than it would in some jurisdictions. Now, like where I live here in Colorado, they barely release anything. What's going on? It used to be like, here's the evening blotter report. Here's all the people that got arrested. Now everybody's all concerned. Oh, we can't say this. They have privacy issues. What if they're, oh, well, I get it. It is what it is, but I'm a firm believer on let it be known out there in the process, so to speak. Let's see if other questions here. Cheryl Scott says, oh, look at this. See, I searched for perjury cases in civil courts for 4 to 4.5 hours and found nothing. I get it. People are all fired up. They want people charged. I mean, I've dealt with that in my practice for years. Somebody said something and they are not telling the truth. They're lying. I want to prosecute for perjury. That's not going to happen. Okay. Not going to happen. It rarely happens. Let's just put it that way. Like I said, I cannot think of a single time that I can think that a perjury case was prosecuted in a civil case, let alone even a criminal case. That's pretty tough to do as well. So I don't get all worked up about it. Just because you don't like what somebody said doesn't mean that's not how they recalled the incident. And remember, for perjury, it's kind of like defamation. You have to be able to show that they knew it was false and they said it anyway. Okay. Not just, this is what I've got. So let's see here. Donna Edwards, she wants to pay her charities that she's never paid with her divorce settlement, maybe due to her surrogate. See, you post it, we may put it up. Be careful what you say. Although I kind of tend to agree. I don't like her definition of I pledged it, and therefore that's good enough. I pledged it. All right, I would like to pledge $1 billion, okay, to the charity of my choice, and I will receive a tax deduction forever for that $1 billion pledge. A pledge, it's like all things in life. It is only as good as the check that clears the bank. Let's see here. Oh, we got somebody from England. There we go. Let me click on this real quick. Nina Mullen Beverly Gill. Let's see here. Okay. You are amazing. Gun laws now. I don't know. It's like lots of things that come through the legislation. I think we already have plenty of laws as they exist right now. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do, but our criminal justice system usually operates under the belief that, we kind of pride ourselves on liberty and freedom. And as long as we're not harming other people, then, the innocent people shouldn't be punished for that. I mean, think about it. What if you live on a street and there are people there that go out and they drink and drive? Now, there's already laws against drinking and driving, but your neighbor goes out, drinks and drive, unbeknownst to you. You've done nothing wrong. He gets in an accident, kills somebody because of his drunk driving, and kills somebody. And they say, you know what? Something's got to be done. So we're going to go to his neighbors on that street, and we're going to say that none of them can own cars anymore because, well, you know what? Your neighbor killed somebody, so that's good enough for us. I mean, I think most people would say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. That's stupid. Why would we do that? Well, exactly. Our our system just operates under the fundamental principle that you have your liberty, your freedom. The government is here to protect your freedom, right, from being infringed upon. That is what our system was founded upon. It's the way it's been operated upon. So just pretty straightforward. You know, I get it. You know, whenever something bad happens, people want to react. And then you got people in Congress and state legislatures that are going to overreact. We got to do something. Do something. We know it's not going to cause that problem, solve the problem, but we feel good about it. Look, we did something, right? Doesn't really kind of make a whole lot of sense, you know, because one person did something wrong. Therefore, the other people in that particular community, that it should all go away for them too, but they did nothing wrong. It just doesn't make any sense, right? Even under the law, we don't hold families accountable for what juveniles do. I can think of the one case up in Minnesota, which I think is a dangerous precedent to set. But, you know, do you really want to be held accountable for what your children do? Maybe you raise them differently. Maybe they got a bad influence, something along those lines. But be careful what you wish for, okay? Because some people say, ban all the guns. Okay, I get that. You can try to do that. But what are you going to do when they say, under the same theory, we're going to ban whatever you particularly like, or you think that you should have a right to do? Yeah, it's all fun and games until they come after what you like. So, okie dokie, here's a 20. I pledge 1,000. Appreciate it, okie dokie. I appreciate it. Good pledge. Keep the pledges coming. Okay. And, think about it. And like I said, I get it. Some people have never fired a weapon. Some people don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not mature enough to handle the responsibility of weapons. But I was looking at something the other day, and it's rather curious. Going back to, I think, like the early 1900s, I think the United States had like 4 mass shootings in a year. And it wasn't until like 1960s, late 60s, 70s that it picked up. And then it really started getting crazy in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, it's just, it's absurd. But, we've all seen like those little pictures where, people, these kids are in, gym class or something, and they're having gun safety courses at school. Everyone's going to say, oh, I used to go to a school where you could have a gun on the gun rack and nobody shot anybody, all that kind of stuff. Right. I mean, what's changed, right? There wasn't any less guns back then. Frankly, if you kind of look per population, it was probably just about the same, if not more. And so what you got to look at is to what changed. Now, Stephanie here, she chimed in with a super chat. Let me see if I can make that click. I'm not sure why it's not showing up on my screen, but she says, no one wants to ban all guns. How about mental health checks and no assault rifles till they're 21? That isn't punishing lawful people. Well, I think the biggest thing is mental health. Okay. And speaking as a criminal defense attorney, just on my own observations, that is the biggest thing. Okay. When we come to court, and I have clients over the years, a very large majority of them have some sort of, whether it be diagnosed or undiagnosed, mental health issue. Oftentimes, those issues lead to people self-medicating through drugs and alcohol, which leads to other things that ultimately wind up in people getting arrested and being involved in the legal system. Okay. I get that. I think the mental health aspect of it is huge. And then you get it. Some states have what they call red flag laws, that if somebody is concerned about somebody possessing a firearm that maybe has mental health issues, then I agree. But if you think about it, When you go in and you buy a firearm, you have to check the box. Have you ever been diagnosed with a mental, I think I want to make sure to try to get like a mental health issue. You ever been diagnosed with that? And people check no, but most people aren't going to, call somebody out on that. And, it's just something where people, if you know there's a red flag, you should probably tell somebody. So maybe the police won't come in and at least get the guns, but maybe they'll be able to watch somebody, put somebody on a radar, start seeing what they're putting on their social media. Okay. The police does not have the resources to look at everybody with mental health issues and go follow them. They just simply do not have those resources. So yeah, and hey, if you don't like the Constitution or any of its amendments, guess what? There's a mechanism whereby you can change it. What people want to do is kind of de facto, repeal the Second Amendment without repealing the Second Amendment. You can't do that. And he says, well, somebody can't own a firearm until they're 21. Well, does that mean we're not going to let anybody go into the military till they're 18 and they'll be handling, the AR-15 when they get into the military? A lightweight, magazine-fed, gas-operated, air-cooled, shoulder-fired weapon capable of firing semi-automatic or 3-round bursts. Okay, that's what they're going to get in the military. And I, can't recall lately when somebody's gone. They used to refer to it as postal, because remember everybody used to go into post offices and do something stupid. Because then they blamed it on working conditions at the post office. And then it usually turned out they had mental health issues. Mental health issues is the big one. Remember, we used to put people with mental health issues in the mental health hospital, and we kept them there. And then a lot of people sued and said, you can't keep people there indefinitely. You've got to let them out on the streets. And then there's a big stigma about it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. They have mental health issues. So I don't know, tough issues. I'm not sure our elected representatives are really the ones that we want to solve it for sure. Adventure baby boomer. Let's see here. Question: mental health checks equal more Big Brother? I agree. It is a slippery, dangerous slope to go down. One of the things that we have are very restrictive laws when it comes to your medical records, which includes your mental health. You're not supposed to be able to give that to people, because if you can't be open and candid with your doctor, then maybe you're not going to get the best treatment that you need. It's kind of like being candid with your attorney. You want to be able to have that protected. Frank, we got a call. Yeah, no name. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Mickey.
Good evening, Mickey. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pennsylvania, right on the New York State border, about 80 miles due west of Buffalo, New York.
Well, that's great. What's on your mind?
Well, I, being a gun enthusiast, am curious to see what you think as being a defense attorney. I seem to notice, in my opinion, there's lots of gun laws enforced. I think people are not quite aware of how many times, say, robberies happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Are you moving around, or are you driving?
I'm sorry.
Okay, you're kind of breaking up. Why don't you ask it real quick again? You said there's basically, as a gun enthusiast, that there are lots of laws already on the books.
Yeah, and the problem is enforcing those laws.
Well, yes, but because, and there's only so many police out there, right? They can't be everywhere at once. Most of the time they're reactive. They are not, proactive and going to do things because of limited resources and dollars to have those resources. But I mean, well, I agree with you. There are plenty of laws out there on the books, right? If you go rob somebody and you use a gun, there's usually a greater penalty if it's carried with a gun, if the crime is committed with a gun. If you are a prohibited person, you can get in more trouble because you have a gun, because you're prohibited from doing that. But the fact that even if somebody knows that they're prohibited, they still do it. So they're just ignoring the
Right.
law.
But it's not just that. I seem to find a lot of times, at least in our rural area, someone will do something, even brandishing a firearm. As far as I'm concerned, that's like a do not pass go. You just threaten someone with a deadly weapon. And unfortunately, it seems as though those charges get dropped back, deals are made, that type of thing. And especially with small area judges, we have like these district justices that went to high school with the guy, hypothetically.
Yeah. Oh.
And
that goes back to the whole,
I just think that,
that goes back to the prosecutors and the judges, imposing sentences. But yeah, I mean, listen, if somebody commits a gun offense, I'm telling you, the people that you do not want on that jury are gun owners and enthusiasts, because they're going to be much harsher on that individual for being stupid with a gun than somebody that just, has no background,
doesn't have any firearm. Right.
Yep. You have to be very, very.
I agree. And biggest frustration, I think, for me is when I hear of the new gun laws and we need to do this, we need to do that. Lots of them all have already been done. People are unaware, when they talk about something as simple as like, there should be a universal background check. Okay. There is. They don't have the funding, the time, the money. Do you realize that? I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I had read an article about a year ago about how many background checks are conducted, that there isn't time for the state police to do the background check completely. And if gun sellers, however you want to call them, vendors, if they don't get a background check within X amount of days, 3 days, they can make their best judgment. Just as the state troopers can also. They can say, oh, yeah, we really don't see anything.
And that may vary from state to state.
Resources.
Yeah, and that may vary from state to state. But, my experience, at least where I am here in the state of Colorado, from going in and purchasing a firearm, if you go in on, say, a Tuesday afternoon, it's probably going to take about 15 minutes with a background check. If you go on a Saturday, it's going to be a little busier because that's when people are buying guns. I think the longest I ever had to wait was about 3 days. And that was when there was talk years and years ago that they were going to ban guns. So everybody's, going to go buy guns.
Yeah.
And it literally, I think it took 3 days. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm in no big rush. I was just, getting it because it was a good deal, etc. I wasn't offended by that. I'm okay with that reasonable restriction as it relates to a background check, and frankly, if somebody, the question becomes, using their best judgment, and this, I get it. The stores don't want to deal with that because there's liability, but let's say, a guy comes in, he looks like he's, been sleeping on the streets for, the last month and, wants to come in and purchase a firearm. Well, guess what? He passes the background check, but maybe he's got mental health issues, right? Why can't somebody say at the store, hey man, I'm exercising my right not to sell you this firearm. And sometimes that's what the store, I think, needs to do instead of just saying, hey, he passed the background check, here it is. Sometimes a little common sense would be great, but then you open up the store to, problems. How come you're violating my rights by letting me sell the gun? So there's going to have to be some immunity for people that call people out and say, no, we can't do that. But instead they just say, we're going to ban stuff. So I agree. Not an easy question. I mean, nobody wants these ridiculous shootings to take place. I mean, these guys are just cowards. We talked about this last week. These guys are cowards that do this stuff because they never go to where the place is armed. We had the dumb criminal of the day the other day.
Children are,
that gets, goes into a gun safety class and tries to steal somebody's gun and then pulls out a screwdriver, which can be classified as a deadly weapon, stabs a police officer, and those gun store owners or gun store employees shoot the guy in self-defense or defense of the officer there. So,
Sure.
these cowards do not go to the police station. They don't go to the military base. They don't go to the gun store and rob places, right? When do gun stores get robbed? Well, in midnight when they drive through the front door to crash through the window, because they know that during the day, those guys are all armed to the teeth, and they don't do it because these guys are cowards, and there's nothing that can be said any differently about it. And their name should be said only to know that this is a wall of fame of cowardness. That's it. Bottom line. Because the only fame they should get is this is the biggest coward. And look what this coward did. He goes in there and slaughters, 19 little children and 2 adults. Like, are you kidding me? That is an absolute coward through and through. So, hey, thanks, Mickey, for the call. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Love you, Scott. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. One more on the call, Frank? Yes. Catherine.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. What's on your mind?
Okay, just two-part question. It's regarding the Depp Heard trial. I wanted to get your outcome on your opinion on what you thought the most likely outcome of the Depp Heard trial is. You probably don't want to give an opinion, but just based on what you've seen on how these high-profile civil cases play out. And then the second part of the question would be, if Depp does come out the winner, then would Amber Heard have potentially a $48 million judgment on her? And if she did, what would happen? I know it's a financial question, but I mean, do they get a wage assignment? How does somebody pay that?
All right. So who do I think wins? Okay. I think if the jury follows the law, I think that they can say that, hey, he's a public figure. Hey, he being Johnny Depp is a public figure. And there's a heightened level of scrutiny that they have to show absolute malice. Okay. Now, I got in a bunch of trouble for this when I said early on, I'm like, you know what? I think both of these people have their own issues. They didn't get to deal this out in their divorce. So this is an ongoing play of that. But I think the jury, if they look at it, is going to say, hey, we don't like Amber Heard. I think most people will say, we don't like Amber Heard. She seems like a horrible person, not a nice person. And frankly, she's got some truthfulness issues when it comes to her statements as well. Like the whole donation thing, that kind of troubling to me. But, there's a Supreme Court case out there, Hustler v. Flint, not Larry. No, it's not. Hustler v. Falwell. Sorry. Where they put a cartoon up that he was a pastor, very religious guy, basically said that he had sex with his mother in an outhouse. He sued on that emotional damage. And the court said, no, you can't. He's a public figure. You can say just about anything you want about public figures. All right. But if I was a jury back there, what would I do? I'd say, you know what? I'd say you each win. We'll give you $1, maybe $100 just for the cost of inflation. Okay. And maybe be like, you guys go your separate ways. Now, your second part of your question is, what if Johnny Depp wins? Let's say the jury believes everything Johnny Depp said, that he was slandered. It was true malice. He gets what he's asking for, $50 million. Amber Heard on her counterclaims of $100 million. She gets a big goose egg. Zero, nothing, nada. What happens then? Well, first, her attorneys will file a motion for motion notwithstanding the verdict, for a directed verdict, and basically say, Judge, you can't impose this. He's a public figure, follow the law. If that's denied, then Amber Heard would obviously want to appeal. She could also then, and if, what I would do would be say, let's file for bankruptcy. Okay. Because Johnny Depp at that point becomes an unsecured creditor. That piece of paper that says he's entitled to $50 million. Guess what? You know how much that piece of paper is worth? About that judgment is worth about as much as the piece of paper that is written upon. Nada, nothing, right? He'll get nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why people got all
Yeah.
upset when I was like, what were his attorneys thinking? He's paying, probably costing him what, $50,000 a day. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got attorneys. He had 4 attorneys sitting at the table there, AV people, probably a bunch of paralegals. The attorneys, let's just for easy number saying $1,000 an hour, right? And even though you're in court only for
Yep.
say 8 hours, on any good trial day, you're probably going to be working 12. So one attorney is going to cost you $12,000 a day times 5, right? Start adding that up. That's 60 grand a day. They went 6 weeks. One attorney, I hope somebody advised him along the way and said, this is going to be a tough case. There's no guarantee you're going to win. The only one that's going to come out ahead in this case is going to be the attorneys, right? Amber Heard testified that she had spent $6 million on attorney's fees. $6 million.
Well, I looked them both up on Celebrity Net Worth, and he's worth like, 150 million plus, and she's only worth 2 million. And so there seems to be a pretty large wealth differential there.
Yeah.
I was just curious as to if he does win, like what would happen to her? She'd pretty much lose everything unless, like you said, it just, she appealed it. And I'm not siding with her. I'm just wondering how it would play out.
No. And I understand. And I think if you look at it, I mean, the letter, she put her name to it. She didn't write it, but it was actual malice. I mean, we've talked about the definition of domestic violence. If you do something to somebody who you've been involved in an intimate relationship with to control, intimidate, retaliate against, harass, annoy, alarm, I mean, that's domestic violence. You may not think it is. They may not think it is at the time, but that definition makes it domestic violence. So I think there was domestic violence on each side. Okay. I think that neither one of them come to the table with clean hands whatsoever. But they had their day in court. They jabbed it out. Clearly, I think Johnny Depp came out looking better in the public eye, even though he had a lot of his dirty laundry aired out there. I mean, I just thought he was a quirky guy. I didn't think that he was, stoned and liquored up the whole time. Now it's like, I thought you were a pretty good actor, maybe it'd be better if you weren't liquored up and stoned the whole time. But I think he got a public relations boost on this one. And Amber Heard, clearly, I think she'll be lucky, getting any jobs professionally in a very long, long time. And briefly, coincidentally, the lovely Miss Kristen and I were flumming through the channels this weekend, and one of the channels had on Aquaman. And so the lovely Miss Kristen said, let me take a look at this. And I watched a few minutes of it, and I really couldn't take much of it because it's all that animated, it's all done on the computer screen stuff, which is fine. Some people like that. But God, she's a terrible actress. She's not good. Okay.
Right.
I mean, literally,
that's what they were saying, is she's like a B actress.
I wouldn't
like
even go B level. I don't know. I'd probably go much lower than that because, they got like D celebrities, right? She's like, I mean, it looked like you could have picked up somebody randomly from the street and probably got the same performance out of that. I just thought, I was like, well, she's not that good. So anyway,
well, hopefully, it'll have a positive outcome for both people and they'll learn something from it. I think that'll be the most important takeaway.
Hopefully whatever happens, these people can just walk away. Okay. This is the reason why I don't do divorce law, is because this was just a continuation of divorce. Thank God. These two did not have any children together. Could you imagine these two trying to co-parent?
Oh,
it would
go on for like 20 plus years.
Oh, at least it would never end. It would never, ever end. So All right. Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate the call.
Thank you very much, Scott.
All right. Who's up next, Frank? Is it Lana? Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Where are you calling from,
Can you
Lana?
hear me?
I can.
Right, Dad. I talked to you in the past, or not too long ago anyway. Probably not a popular subject, but it's about the Ghislaine Maxwell. And when I talked to you, I said, how did they charge her with 3 counts of this conspiracy 371 with the same conspiracy? Like, in other words, if you murdered somebody, you're not going to charge you with 3 separate counts of murder, right?
No,
Under
actually, you
the
can.
same thing.
You can. It's called
You can't-
different. It's
three-
called
three
alternate. Yes, it's called alternate theories of prosecution. Okay, so you can be charged with first-degree murder. All right, that you did something after
I know
deliberation.
that.
You could be charged. Well, your phone is chirping.
I understand that. But 3 separate charges of I mean, am I talking
Yes.
about in 3 separate counts? You
Yes.
charge 187 first-degree murder 3 separate times?
Yes.
Okay.
Under
In any
different-
case,
different
anyway,
theory-
what I was saying, they ended up after conviction, they dropped the 2 of them because they said it was double jeopardy. And so they only left now we're left with charges of 3, 4, and 6. With number 3 being a conspiracy. And what they did is they took taking out 1 and 5. They just went and took those so-called victims' names and stuck them into the conspiracy in 3, and added in another girl that didn't even testify.
Yeah, they can do that.
How is this not a constructive amendment?
It's
No.
legally
How is this
possible.
not a constructive?
Okay. I mean, do you want to listen to my answer, or you just want to tell me that I'm wrong?
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
They can do
wrong
that.
at all.
They can do that. Okay. They can charge a conspiracy. Then they can charge the separate acts. They can charge different theories under the same set of acts. I was using the homicide example for clarification purposes, because frankly, it's easier and a little more enjoyable for somebody to talk about. Not that murder is an enjoyable subject, but what I'm saying is sex assault stuff gets a little weird. Okay. So in the murder, you could be charged with first-degree murder after deliberation. You could be charged with second-degree murder. Say, for example, you killed them not after deliberation, but knowingly. You could be charged with extreme indifference. You could be charged with felony murder. You could be charged with all those same act.
3 times.
Okay.
Can you charge it murder 1 on 3 separate counts? Though?
Yes, that's how it's
Murder
done.
1.
Yes, and at sentencing they would merge. The jury would decide. The jury would decide if the elements were proven. And let's say they found under 3 different theories of prosecution that somebody had committed an act of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and reckless extreme indifference. The jury could find that, but then they would merge for sentencing purposes. Okay. So yes, it is possible to have multiple theories of prosecution charged. Normally the prosecution will elect, those arguments will be made, but ultimately kind of the most serious charge sticks, and everything else below that merges into that. Hopefully that answers the question. All right. Take a couple more questions here. It goes by so fast. Lisa says, our mental health system needs a tremendous overhaul. I have knowledge on the background of closing institutions, housing not only mental health patients, but people with disabilities. It was horrific. Yep. But you have to remember the people that obviously, a lot of people that advocated for that were people that were advocates for the mental health. They thought it was cruel, how mean it could be. Why can't you do that? They're not living a good life. So they put them out there thinking, oh, we'll get them the resources. But then, like all things in life, there's limited resources. And, bottom line, that's pretty simple. Patricia wants to know, Depp's lawyers totally outclassed Heard's lawyers. Do you think that will make a difference? I didn't hear the instruction. I didn't hear all the instructions being read. We came on live near the end of it. But there's an instruction that they give oftentimes in federal court. It basically says, hey, you have to look at the evidence. Don't make your decision based upon the personalities of the attorneys in the courtroom. Okay. And that's how people should make their decision. The courtroom is not a popularity contest. Does it help sometimes if the jury likes you? Yes. I've had cases where I can literally think the jury likes me. They like what I have to say. Okay. And there's other juries that just hate Scott. Okay. They're like, oh, I bet Scott's got something to say about this, right? I've heard it, but I've also had those juries come back and say not guilty. Because they're supposed to make their decision based upon the law, not on the personalities of the attorneys in the courtroom. Okay. It's not a popularity contest. Right. And that's why I got beat up so bad when I'm like, are you kidding me? I thought Johnny Depp was a terrible, terrible witness. I thought Amber Heard was a terrible witness, which I think goes directly to their preparation by their attorneys. Amber Heard couldn't answer a question without a snide comment or adding something onto it. She was lucky she didn't get a mistrial granted. I thought Johnny Depp, even on direct, I was just like, dude, answer the question. Like, I pretend that you're not up there just, kind of stuttering, making your way through. I mean, I thought it was painful to watch his testimony, but that's not the way. I want my ways is get up there. Here's the question, answer it. Next question. Boom, boom, boom. I don't understand why the other side didn't object more when Johnny Depp. I mean, that's called a narrative. Okay. There's a couple of objectives when the witness just gets up there and just starts rambling and stating, this is what we're going to do and talk about blah, 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 blah. It's called objection, narrative, non-responsive. Then the court has to say, yeah, why don't you ask the question again? Witness, why don't you do this and listen to the question and only answer the question that's asked? And normally a question is one question, not compound, one question. All right. What year were you born? I was born in 1969. What year did you start acting? Oh, I started acting in 1985. Not, well, I took this acting class once and then I was in the school theater and blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Not relevant. So you make the narrative, non-responsive, relevance objection. What element does that go to prove or disprove of the elements that the statements were false? I don't know. I don't know. I know they're big, fancy law firms that were doing the case. I liked, was it Mr. Chung from Brian Chun was his name? Or Chung? Hun? I don't know. The two attorneys for Johnny Depp, they were both good. Miss Velasquez and the other guy. And then the guy that did the first closing for, can't remember his name. Sorry, I don't have him right in front of me. That did the first closing for Amber Heard. I thought he was really good. He really said, here's the law. Let's take a look at the facts. This is why Mr. Depp's claims fail. Then the other lady got up for Amber Heard, her second closing, to say why she's entitled to this $100 million. I don't think she did as good a job as all. I was a little surprised that is it Velasquez or Vasquez? Vasquez. Benchu, that was it. I knew it was some. But I was surprised that Miss Velasquez read her closing statement. I mean, wow. I don't think I've ever typed out, written a closing statement ever. I just the case. I guarantee you that was just a crutch. That was nervousness. Had somebody ripped that away from her, I bet she still could have given that closing statement without it. She would have been looking at the jury instead of reading her script, and it would have just come across much, much better. Mama Pink, Amber Heard is unremarkable as a person, looks, and acting. I just saw her for the first time acting Aquaman, and it was for a very brief, maybe 10 minutes. I thought she was terrible. Terrible. Sarah Claire says, I believe it was the illegal tapes that put Johnny Depp in a much better light. I think so, because those tapes are not very flattering to Amber Heard, and she was the one doing most of that recording, and a surprise that she thought that would help her in some way. That's for sure. Jen Lowe, personally, I don't think she's that beautiful. I mean, she's not. I think she's pretty average. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, co-parenting wouldn't work. Let's see here. Oh yeah. So listen, we're gonna, our Patreon show, which is kind of a continuation for this. We'll do it, but obviously there's a lot less people. So if you want your questions asked, it's much more likely to get done. You can also call in, and we're gonna obviously do the Magic 8-Ball. If you can see the Magic 8-Ball back there in the Crime Talk mug, we have the old school Magic 8-Ball, and then we have the high speed, low drag Magic 8-Ball that we will ask a question of. And it's been pretty correct. I think the question last week was, will Johnny Depp win? I think the Magic 8-Ball said yes. So we'll see. Yeah, Kira. Oh, is there a super chat? Let's go to super chat. She's got Elon's baby, so she sat. That was a big mistake on his part. Yeah, I don't know whose that is, but I'm not sure. He should have run. He's smarter than that. Okay, Michael says, I think the woman who called about Maxwell was trying to ask about a constructive amendment because the grand jury indicted on information not presented at trial. 4 minors, only 2 were minors. Well, maybe I misunderstood her question. You can't amend the indictment mid-trial. That's the whole point of an indictment. You can't just amend it like a complaint and information. You have to go back to the grand jury. Well, you can't do that because the trial's going on. That'd be a little too late. The trial started. So if the prosecution has charged it and she's, basically the judge is allowing in stuff that wasn't in the grand jury indictment, then that's wrong. I mean, I think there are lots of issues in that case from what I know, but I don't know all of them because it wasn't televised for sure. Now, after sentencing, I'm going to see if one of the attorneys will come on the case and maybe talk about generally what took place, but we'll have to wait until after sentencing. We'll have to wait and see. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. On information not presented at trial. Well, I mean, the grand jury would have had to hear some evidence related to the grand jury indictment. So, I mean, the prosecution, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I mean, United States attorneys are okay. They're fine, whatever. But, everyone thinks they're all freaking geniuses because they went to Ivy League schools. But a lot of them never been in a courtroom in their life. And it's my understanding a lot of them in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial did not have that much trial experience either. So, good thing they had the judge in there helping them out for the prosecution. Don wants to know, hey, Scott, do you know whether they'll come back tomorrow? I don't know. A jury can take as little or as long to deliberate as they need to reach their unanimous decision. So I don't know. I did a 3.5 week trial once, and it took the jury 32 minutes to find my client guilty. I've done a simple trial where we were out, maybe lasted a day and a half, and they were out for 5 days. It just depends on how long the judge will allow them to go. It just depends. You have to remember they had 6 weeks. Now they get the evidence, they get the stuff brought in that's been admitted into evidence, legal and competent evidence, but they don't get a transcript. So they have to rely upon their collective notes and judgments. And do we believe this person? Do we believe all of their statements? Some of it, part of it, none of it, something along those lines. So they have a lot to talk about. Because remember, we've all been talking about the case as it goes along. The one reason why all these people are together, they couldn't talk about the case until the jury got the case back, the case delivered to them. So we'll see. Let me go through here some of the questions real quick. If not, Trish Norman thinks the jury will come back tomorrow. I don't know. Adventure by Baby Boomer, each had a very different memory of the events as they occurred. That's true. And is it because that's the way they perceived it? Maybe because they were on drugs, alcohol, right? That's one of the reasons why it's so important to find out, is your memory affected by, and your perception to perceive what allegedly took place, impaired by drugs or alcohol? That's relevant questions. Okay. Use your common sense. If somebody is high as a kite, okay, on drugs or alcohol, you think their perception is any better? It gets better when they're on alcohol than if they're stone cold sober? Common sense would say no, right? It's kind of like, does your memory get better over time? No, it doesn't. Okay. Just common sense stuff. So even though there were some extremely different versions of the events, some of the people there were extremely intoxicated. Okay. Some people have motive to lie, to fabricate, maybe stretch the truth a little bit. Maybe they're employees for somebody, they're friends of somebody. All those things the jury has to take into consideration. And remember, yes, we got to watch the witnesses testify on the stand. It's just not the same watching it on TV as it is actually being in the courtroom. Okay. I think Amber Heard did a terrible job as a witness. So, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. Rottenborn, that was the other guy, Mr. Rottenborn. He did the first closing for the Amber Heard team. I thought he was really good. That's just my humble opinion. He was prepared. He didn't read. He had his PowerPoint. Said, "Hey, this is why the claim fails. Let's take a look at this." It was very, very well orchestrated. Kim wants to know, is the jury taking a while? Is that a good sign? Juries take their jobs very seriously. They understand a lot of money is at stake, right? It could affect somebody's, not their liberty, because it's not a criminal case, but their financial ability. And so, yes, it is a big deal. And they take their jobs very seriously. So I would just go along with it. Wait it out. When we get the word that she's here, we'll bring it to you live, whether I'm here or not. We'll put it up. But we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully I'm here. But there's judges out there that are trying to make my life miserable this week, setting things without looking at my calendar. And so, yeah, it just gets a little crazy. So we shall see. All right. I think that's what we have for tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please join us every day. We put a video out every day. If you're new to the channel and new to our live, we put a video out just about every day, and then a weekly recap. And then immediately following this, give me 5-10 minutes. We will go to our Patreon show where the questions and comments will continue. And once again, you can call in, but it'll just be for our Patreons. So you have a much better chance of getting your question answered. So have a wonderful night. And we'll see you next time on Crime Talk.